Today we're going to talk about how disagreements can be unpleasant sometimes, but with the right perspective, they can be very rewarding. Hi, this is Dan Schuck at Glass Half Question. Do you enjoy disagreeing with other people or having them disagree with you? Do you lean into it and look for an argument, or do you try to avoid conflict at all costs? Over the past few episodes of the Practicing Perspective series, I've been discussing the new era we live in, what I call the age of disagreement. There has been a worldwide phenomenon over the last 25 years where we are disagreeing with each other at higher and higher levels. This is caused by a number of different contributing factors. The rise of democracy and consumerism, from Yelp to world politics, the age of egalitarianism, not done, but much closer to giving everyone equal right to voice their opinion, and technology. We each have almost unlimited ability to find information and to share information, including our disagreements. All of these things are not going to change anytime soon, and the age of disagreement is just going to continue to grow. So we better learn to be good at it. More than just being good at disagreeing, we each want to be successful in disagreeing. Now, the first thing that comes to mind when I say disagree successfully is that you win the argument, that you get to be right, and that the other person decides to change their perspective and to agree with you. This is definitely one way of being successful in a disagreement, and very often that is exactly what's needed. An additional important perspective to consider when the goal or outcome of a disagreement is to succeed in getting the other person to agree is that this is not so much about winning as it is about teaching. Each of us is a teacher in life. We don't all have the skills to manage the classroom full of children or to teach a programming course online. But every day, in our day-to-day interactions with other people, we are telling them about our perspectives and our knowledge and teaching other people our view of the world. So if winning a disagreement is really teaching, then losing a disagreement would also be an opportunity for learning. We are all teachers and we are all students. As much as we teach each other about our perspectives, we also learn from one another about each other's perspectives. This doesn't always have to be about big controversial disagreements. More often than not, our disagreements are about smaller things. Here are some examples. Is this a good restaurant? Maybe you believe it's not because of past experience or even the way it looks, but a Yelp review convinces you to give it another chance. Maybe you're the one writing the review and you were able to teach someone else to avoid it. Which road do you take on your commute to work? Perhaps you have driven the same way for years, but you find a coworker living near you has a faster route, or maybe they're very happy with a slightly longer commute when they take the train and don't have to deal with traffic. On the other hand, you might find that the coworker has no clue and makes the commute much harder than is needed, and you were able to convince them to take your way. Should we have spaghetti for dinner? You may think it's a fantastic idea and are able to convince your family that spaghetti is easy and inexpensive to prepare. Or perhaps you lose that argument and learn that the rest of the family is tired of having spaghetti as often as you like it. We might not always think of these things as disagreements. Often we save our definition of disagreement for politics, religion, and money. But in fact, the habits we build, whether they are good habits or bad habits, translate from one type of disagreement to another. Have you ever been in a disagreement with someone about something rather mundane, but they treat it like it's a big important political topic or something? Often we build patterns about how we disagree based on the extremes, and then that translates, sometimes inappropriately, to day-to-day disagreements that make up life. And what about those disagreements where neither side wins or loses? These are the disagreements where both sides try to present their perspective, and in the end, neither side is convinced to change their opinions. We each experience these kinds of disagreements in our regular lives, and it can be harder to see how these kinds of disagreements can be considered successful. But I still think there's a way in which these kinds of disagreements can be perceived as successful to both sides. It takes a little more work and some strong perspective skills to be able to find success in these unresolved disagreements. As I said before, we live in an age of disagreement, and we're going to continue to face more and more disagreements with each other as we proceed through life together. Even if it takes work to get there, it can be really valuable to find ways to succeed in your disagreements, win, lose, or draw. The key to disagreeing successfully is to have the skills and habits of managing your own perspective. That's what I talk about here on the Practicing Perspective series, how to use the power of perspective to change your life for the better. This is all introduced in a really simple way in my children's book for grown-ups, which you can find on Amazon or barnesandnoble.com or right at the glasshalfquestion.com website. It makes a good gift for anyone you know that needs help with this idea of perspective. It's also the kind of thing you might need to look at again from time to time, which is why I tried to put this into a simple picture book format. In the last few episodes of this series, I've been sharing some tips and tricks, little techniques that you can use to work through your disagreements. These are all based on perspective and trying to work on helping both sides of the disagreement to use more flexible and open perspectives to listen to the other side. One of these practicing perspective tools is called the A-square, and by using these 4 steps, you can often open up the discussion. Awareness. Take a beat to be aware of your own perspectives, and then try to consider the other person's perspectives. What are the facts and perspectives you really agree about, and where are the differences? Agreement. Pick something from the other person's argument that you can actually agree with. Amplification. Expand on that point by adding more to it. This demonstrates that you are listening and that you are searching for a common ground. It's very disarming to the person disagreeing with you. Addition. Avoid subtraction and don't make your next word be but or however. This would basically crush the progress you just made. Instead, try using the word and or additionally. This is where you can offer a piece of your argument that they may agree with, or at least listen to. The A-square tool takes practice to use. That first part about taking a beat for awareness is particularly hard to remember to do in the heat of an argument. But the really great thing about this tool is that it opens up both sides of the disagreement to be more considerate of the other's perspective. Even if the outcome is not that one side or the other side changes their argument, there is more opportunity for productive exchange of ideas when the A-square technique is employed. Another technique I've discussed is called Write Your Story. This builds upon the A-square tool by combining it with another practicing perspective tool called the empathy triangle. The empathy triangle is designed to help you consider not only the level of empathy you have for the other person, but what type of empathy. There are 3 types of empathy to consider. Cognitive empathy. Can you imagine that person's position and why they may have the perspective that they do? Emotional empathy. Can you imagine how that person is feeling? Are they invested in their opinion? Do they have other emotions related to this topic that you are able to feel on their behalf, if even a little bit? And empathetic concern. What is your sense of concern for the other person's feelings and emotional state? Are you a parent in the situation, looking out for the well-being of your child? Are you the employee of a boss that you don't want to make upset? This kind of being concerned about the other person's emotions is a factor in how you build awareness of the situation. Combining the empathy triangle with the A-square tool is a way to step back from the situation and really make sure the awareness side of the square is thoroughly thought through. The Write the Story technique is a way to use the empathy triangle to look at both characters in the story of your disagreement. What kinds of empathy does your character have for the other party? How about that other character? Can you use the empathy triangle to determine what kinds of empathy that person might have with you? Using your imagination to step away from the situation and look at it from a third party's perspective, almost like the author writing the story about both characters in the disagreement, you may better be able to find places where you do agree, even if these are simply agreement on some of the underlying facts. It can also help you uncover some of the other factors that may be at play in the disagreement. I often find that when you think about the empathetic concern the other party may have for you in the disagreement, that this can be enlightening to your understanding about why they are saying what they are saying. If, for example, the person you are disagreeing with is your parent, that parent is likely to have some concern not only for winning the argument, but also for your own well-being, emotionally or otherwise. Looking at the level and type of empathy on both sides can help you see if there are biases on either side that may need to be addressed. These techniques also might open up our thinking a little more about what a successful disagreement really is. I talked before about winning and losing part of a disagreement from another perspective being about teaching and learning. However, the opportunity to teach and learn does not necessarily depend on winning or losing the argument. Using some of the practicing perspective techniques I was just going over can help you open up the disagreement so that even if there is no clear winner, there is still some opportunity for learning in the disagreement. Learning is growing, and it may be just a matter of sowing the seeds for future agreement, or even just good old compromise. Compromising, finding a way to accept some parts of the other side's perspective, so long as parts of yours are also accepted, is something the age of disagreement puts into challenge. We have culturally become so good at disagreeing with each other that the idea that there can be a happy medium seems to be one of the last thoughts we ever have. I'd love to tell you that compromising between both sides of a disagreement is another form of success in disagreeing, because many times it is. However, so many of us have become so opposed to compromising, it actually started to take on a negative term, like you're giving in or giving up. I fear my claim of compromise as a type of success might not really resonate with many of you. In lieu of that, consider just the part about being able to teach something or learn something about the other perspective. Even if a full compromise is not achieved, anytime we increase our comprehension of perspectives, we are growing and adding to our worldview. You may like your worldview just the way it is and have very little interest in other people's perspectives. But if that really bothers you, try not to think about this in terms of winning or losing, and try to keep a perspective of understanding. Understanding that people who are like you has very little value to you, but there's a lot of value to understanding the people who are very different from you. People who have different perspectives and opinions, even people who you might consider your enemy. It may help you to better determine how to make your points, or what points to simply agree on disagreeing. You don't have to like the other side to understand it. You don't have to like the other person to empathize with them. Adding techniques for empathy with a goal of at least increasing understanding to your disagreements can help you find success in them, even if you are frustrated and feel like you are losing the argument. There's a lot more to talk about using perspective as a tool for handling disagreements, along with the other important events of life, such as making a big decision, asking important questions, or searching for happiness. You can find out more about these topics and get my related content either by subscribing or following right here or at the www.glasshalfquestion.com website. And I'll see you in another episode of Practicing Perspective.